Just made it so real. I was like, I can't keep spritzing Daisy Marc Jacobs on, even though I want to.
Welcome to the Hey Mama podcast. We're your hosts, Tessa and Shaina. We are sisters, mothers, and doulas, and are passionate about living an intentional life and all things motherhood. This podcast exists to create community as we learn how to delight in motherhood together.
Join us weekly as we chat with women about anything and everything from non-toxic living to women's health to feeding our families and our favorite topic of all, birth. We are so glad you're here. Oh my gosh. Welcome to the Hey Mom podcast, episode 1, our first official episode. I'm so excited. This is so fun. We are so happy you guys are here.
We really are. We're so excited. We have a little bit of butterflies right now, but hey, we are jumping right in.
It's so fun. I love it.
Before we start, Shaina,
yes,
I wanted to know, it's going to be a little overarching theme with all our guests. We have them on, but what was your mother moment of the week?
My mother moment, I have a 14-month-old daughter. Her name is River. She is a little rascal girl, but she has picked up baby, maybe because you're pregnant and everyone around her now is a baby. And she goes, Baba. And I'm like, are you Moira from Schitt's Creek? Literally, she sees it, just Bebe. And I'm like, River, that Bebe is 2 years old. Bebe is older than you.
Proud of her.
So I think that was it. It's so sweet.
She dresses up as Moira for Halloween 2023.
So many wigs.
I love it.
So what was yours? What was your mother moment?
Mine was, well, I have a few, but I think this week was today. Sage. We juice a lot, like oranges, because we have an orange tree in the yard. And so today I'd cut them all up and I turned my back and then I turned back around and he literally licks each one. He licks each one, but he always does that. But the new part was that he actually started juicing his little orange and he pushed it down and he was going side to side. And then he literally took it in his hand and squeezed it. And I was like, Sage. And he was like, Mama? And I was like, I am so proud of you, son. He's going to make a really great husband.
And like a really good adrenal cocktail.
That's what we were making. He's addicted to them.
Okay. They're the best. We love adrenal cocktails. If you haven't had one, make yourself one right now before you jump into this episode.
Yes, good idea.
But we are so excited. So we're going to kind of introduce our Hey Mama podcast with a little bit of our own kind of journey and what brought us here. So Tessa, I'm so excited. Will you kind of tell us a little bit about like how you got here, your journey, kind of like your why behind guiding your family, more of this non-toxic, holistic approach to living and lifestyle and all of that?
Absolutely. I think just kind of thinking back, life seems long when I'm trying to think back all the way, but it kind of all started when I was really, really young, and you probably weren't even born. Yeah, you were born, but I was really young and I had chronic migraines, chronic headaches, and I really suffered from them. And I was on a super strong medication. And so that medication is something that was it's like a adult prescribed medication. Mm-hmm. And we were talking before, like, why was I even on that or prescribed that to begin with? And that's a whole nother thing. I need to call my mom, but because, I don't know why it was such a strong medication, but that kind of was the start. Like just recalling, like that was the start of, okay, that wasn't right. Yeah. And so just kind of looking back and just thinking through, okay, going through high school and knowing that, our mom always did things more holistically. She always took the longer route. She always researched. She had one of those, like she had a naturopath book. She had all of the different books. She was always reading, and she was so ahead of the game that we were so lucky, but also just she laid such a nice foundation of like, we did not grow up just turning to ibuprofen for every, ache and pain that we had. We did not grow up just turning to an antibiotic immediately every time we were sick. So we had that, which was so neat as just like the foundation for us, but then just kind of getting to college and then realizing, not everybody lives this way. Not everybody has that foundation. Right. So college kind of spearheaded me a little bit more of like, horrible sleep, hanging out with people, just you're totally trench, like with like sleep and too much caffeine. And I was always drinking so much caffeine because I ran coffee shops. And
Right.
so it was just more that
And
idea of,
stressed and not eating well and all
yeah,
those things take a toll on your body.
yeah, just literally crashing with everything that you did. But just thinking about that, like, okay, like I was always exhausted. I never stopped suffering from migraines and headaches.
Right.
I always had stomach issues and like digestive stuff. And then later on, I just started having like, yeah, a lot of issues with like, yeah, going to the restroom and things like that, where it's like, okay, that actually isn't normal to suffer from that. And just different things like that, like along the way of like the extreme fatigue and things like that. So ultimately, I think the big turn for me was when I got married and I had a home on my own. That really started just allowing me the space and freedom to take a hold like of my environment a little bit more.
Yeah.
And to take just a little more control of it and power and just responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And with that responsibility, just starting to make small changes. Whether that was, you know, not using Comet every time I clean the toilet, or just, you know, started to just eliminate things one by one. And it never was overnight. It was just a slow, gradual, just change that took place. And just, you know, I try to have my husband be a part of it a little bit more and things like that. So ultimately, just kind of looking at that journey and then just how it's taken me to, okay, helping me with my headaches now where I am today, and just knowing like, okay, what another thing I guess too that kind of helped was just the knowledge of essential oils and how that helped me. And our sister was huge with that because she really introduced us a lot to that. And just knowing that like there was started to be an out, there's an alternative. And I just started to not, you know, I just never took antibiotics. Truly, I started to just be able to fuel my gut a little bit more and to do alternatives and kind of help myself with chronic sinus infections and migraines and strep throat that I'd always
I
had.
was going to say, like during college, I feel like you were always either had strep throat or a sinus infection, literally nonstop. And so you had to be on antibiotics a lot.
Yeah,
right?
I had to. And then I just decided to stop going to the doctor in college because I was like, hey, I don't have the time. But I was like, I know they're going to prescribe me another antibiotic and I can't do it. I don't want to do it.
Right.
So I would just stop. I wouldn't do it. And I just started learning my own little ways to
Lots of kombucha.
deal with it. Lots of kombucha, lots of gargling with warm salt water, lots of ACV, apple cider vinegar.
We love it, you guys.
But yeah, it kind of just led me to where I am today, which there's a lot. But I don't know. I think that's kind of a little summary.
Yeah, I think you did great. I just missed my notes. So what would you say like in that? Because I know you've been so intentional and dedicated to what you've been introducing to Sage and kind of all that. And I want to get into that in a second question. But what was the biggest challenge or hurdle or kind of like obstacle along this journey, whether it was, you know, beginning when you were in college and really kind of taking over more, or as you were building your own home and with Jake and now with Sage, kind of like what was the biggest thing you kind of like felt like was either the hardest to give up or was the hardest to change or was the biggest challenge in this, because we're still on this journey. It's not like it's ended, but like from where you were to where you are.
I think truly it's helped so much with Sage just because I've even more so I want to protect him and protect his body and protect his microbiome and things like that, that I have taken a hold of it so much more with him, even more so than I ever did with myself.
Right.
And just quicker. So I think with Sage, it's truly been with like when he's been sick and just kind of realizing some stuff with just, okay, maybe not needing to use the medication route, but maybe letting him fight through this fever and things like that. So just different things that I've learned, especially when he's faced illness, has been probably the biggest learning journey. And just knowing that like his body was meant to fight things off. So that's probably been the one. I also remember back in the day, which you'll remember, but Native deodorant, you know, I used to have to buy it online. That was the OG day. Yeah. That was the only one, like the only clean deodorants besides like, you know, the ones you get from Whole Foods.
Which aren't very clean when you read the ingredients.
I know.
So that was the craziest thing.
And they didn't work. And Native actually worked. But I just remember that change. Like that was a huge change of like, oh, I'm buying this like product and I like had to actually buy it online.
Right.
And it was a hassle. But it was something that I was like, I remember that little change.
Yeah.
Was
Well,
huge.
and now we can't buy native deodorant
Yeah,
unless you only buy the lavender rose scent.
Right. Wait.
That's the only one.
Rose?
The lavender one.
Okay.
That's the only one that does that fragrance.
No, I know. I didn't remember the name.
Oh, me either. I just know it has lavender in it. So if you're looking, it's the lavender one, but
Yes.
everything else.
Lavender coconut, I think.
Okay, that sounds right. That sounds better. Okay, so like just more of that kind of going back to trusting your gut, which is then in response, then trusting him and trusting his body, which that is a big thing. Like that's a hard thing as moms, especially when everyone is telling us or like,
Right.
you know, people or, you know, people close to us, or we look up something and like Google gives you the worst case scenario. Never look at Google if your kid's sick. But yeah, that is really hard. That's going to be like an ongoing one, but just trusting him.
Yeah. And just a good foundation of like, yeah, we're never going to have to stop fighting for them.
Right.
And yeah, listening to our gut instinct.
Yeah.
But enough about me. Shaina, what about you? How did you get here today?
Well, Tessa and I are very similar, but really similar in kind of on how our journeys began. I struggled with headaches every single day, but I never was put on medication. So mine were lots of tests, lots of doctor appointments. I had a lot of really weird just health issues, like things that would just come up and you know, caused me to feel a lot of fear or anxiety. And then I would go back for a test and they were like disappear. And I'm like, okay, like this is really weird. And just kind of repeatedly always happening where I felt like I was always going to doctors and no one was ever giving me answers. And I just was getting really frustrated. And for me, that like health, that's so something that's I want to control. And I felt like I was out of control. And you know, giving it to the Lord and surrendering that. But I was like, I feel like there's more that I should be doing with this space. So again, going back to our mom, she is absolutely amazing. We love you, girl. We call her Bunny. We love you, Bunny. But she was so just foundational in laying those foundations of like, we would drive to Dr. Schultz and get tinctures, you know, and drink superfood every morning.
I would love to know if anybody knows who Dr. Schultz is.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
But things like that where she did that none of my friends or my mom's friends were like doing. So I knew it was different what she was doing. It was being so intentional. And so she actually encouraged me to start going to acupuncture, which started to really help. And it started to just kind of calm my nervous system and bring a little bit of order. And so I think that was the beginning of like realizing and taking control of my own health journey. And then from there, I really started to research and kind of like understand more and take a deep dive into how our bodies work and why they work and just the beautiful design of like we were created with a purpose and intention and living that out. And so I think that really like started me. And then when I got pregnant with River, I really took a deep dive into everything. And, you know, you read that, or we know that our daughters are born with all the eggs they'll ever have. So like I was carrying inside of me my daughter and then her children, so my grandchildren. And that realization just made it so real. I was like, I can't keep spritzing Daisy Marc Jacobs on, even though I want to. Man, okay, that's probably my biggest one. I miss perfume so much, but essential oils are great.
It's still sitting on my dresser. I haven't thrown it away.
You've got just a special occasion. Oh yeah, I'm done with all of them.
Oh, I like have so many like bottles that are like halfway and they're just sitting there staring at me.
You've got to do something
laughing in my face.
You have to do something with that. But I think with her, being pregnant with her, that really made me realize like, okay, like there are still so many more things that I have to shift and I have to change and slowly eliminate. So I started that. I slowly started to eliminate different things around my house. So when, you know, a comet or when something ran out, like a cleaning product, then I was intentional. I was making my own, or I was resourcing some that I knew had literally nothing in them but vinegar and, you know, whatever. And so making those small changes, turning to clean makeup when I ran out of my makeup and clean skincare when I ran out of my skincare, because I also had to do it in a way of like, I can't just throw all my stuff out and start from scratch. I had to then be purposeful, like, okay, how am I going to do it slowly and in those baby steps? And then there's other things like I threw out all of our candles. Like I haven't burned a candle in like 2 years. I do miss them, but I would burn them and I would immediately get a headache.
Oh,
And I'd be like, okay, like this is fine. I'll just
horrible.
suffer through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think with my pregnancy, it really forced me to like internally look of how are these things making me feel, and realizing that there was a connection hormonally, there was a connection to what I was eating, there was a connection to things in my environment. I walked into, I passed Bed Bath and Beyond or Bath and Body Works and get a headache.
Oh.
I don't know how people shop in that store.
Well, sorry if you do. We get
I'm
it,
not
but
trying to be rude.
I think
So
it's too.
sensitive.
If you're sensitive to headaches, like you can't. It's just so hard.
Yeah. So I think those small changes, and just really living in that more of like a 20-80 lifestyle. So eliminating where we can, cutting back where we can. You know, I'll still highlight my hair, but maybe I go twice a year. I would love to go more. I just always forget. And so it's just those little things. And I started to realize that they were contributing to my overall health and how I was feeling. And then I took a deep dive into metabolic health, but I feel like that's a separate episode. So I won't go into that.
We can't go that deep right now.
No. But that's how I feel like I kind of started and now where I am today. And I don't have headaches anymore. I get them, you know, right when I'm about to start my period or when I'm on my period. So I just get hormonal headaches.
And the same with me. And I just think it's so crazy because we hadn't realized it. About like, oh, we've actually like been healed from that.
Yeah.
And we like one day like said it to each other and I was like, yeah, I don't know the last time I got a headache.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
Without
and we're like the
being
headache sisters. Like
so
of all the ones in our family, you know, there's 5 girls and 2 boys. And we're the ones who like have the worst, well, that I know of. I hope I'm not misspeaking, you guys. Hello, siblings. But we're the ones who have the worst headaches and migraines. And that our mom had them. Always growing up.
And maybe we shouldn't say the worst because I'm sure they've had terrible ones. Just continual,
chronic,
like where it would be every single day without a break of like, okay, I'm just waiting for my headache to roll around, you know?
Exactly.
And a lot of it has to do with posture and what we're eating and all that stuff. So yeah, I would say that.
So wait, so you would go back and say little Daisy was hardest? What
my challenge?
Yeah,
I think
what was
so.
your biggest challenge?
I just
to give up.
I smell very lovely a lot. So I want something to mask it. I'm like, this natural deodorant, I got to get something more.
I think you've been smelling better.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Postpartum, so it just changes everything.
Yeah, I would say postpartum, you don't got a choice. Your body just has to rid itself.
Those first few months.
Yes. Oh, I know. But yeah, I can't smell today, so who knows? Who knows what she smells?
I smell
like.
Lovely.
Okay. Well, do you want to start with talking about a little bit about River, or should I go first with CG?
Oh, I totally can. So kind of like how we've been implementing more of this approach into our lives. Yeah, I would say with River, I have been very specific and just, I don't want to say picky. I've just been very intentional with what I put on her and what she eats and what is in her environment. You know, like just being intentional where we can, the car seats that we use and the strollers that we use and the carriers that we use and stuff like that. And then of course it's like, is everything she wears organic cotton? No, I wish it was, but it's not. One, because it's just really expensive when they're going out of clothes every 2 weeks. And so I think like where I am able to be very intentional and just purposeful with like what I said, what's going on in her body and where she's, what she's eating, and then the toys that she has and what she's putting in her mouth and all of those things. I've tried to be really intentional and purposeful in how her environment is set up in order for her to succeed, in order to protect her gut biome and in order to protect her skin and all these different things. So I would say that's kind of how it's carried over for River.
Did you find it hard with starting the like baby-led journey?
I didn't, just because I felt in the beginning, baby-led weaning. Are you talking about baby-led weaning? Okay.
Baby-led weaning journey. I'm sorry.
In the beginning, I was just more like, oh my gosh, she's eating. But then once I got past that, I was so thankful because she just eats what we eat.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, there's sometimes where she like doesn't want it. So then I go and she wants toast. More, more, more.
So much Ezekiel toast.
Yeah. And there's variations. Like when I say she eats what we eat, she still has, I still give her certain things of like, we might be eating pasta, but she has, you know, her brown rice pasta.
Right.
And there's different things I'm implementing, but overall, she sees I'm eating pasta and she sees she's eating pasta. So it's that simple, like it's just continuous. It's the same for us all. And that has been so sweet and beautiful. Like she wants to eat off my plate. She can eat anything off my plate. You know, like that has been so freeing that I wouldn't say that was a challenge.
So
Yeah.
so cool.
I think it just inspired me to like buy better eggs, and I was giving her egg yolk every day.
Yeah. Which is a really great first food if
is.
you do not know that with your
Yes.
little one.
Soft boiled egg
And
yolk.
so many
raw
mamas
egg
are
yolk.
afraid of it. And
Yeah.
it's as long as the quality of the egg.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
salmonella, you're worried about it on the eggshell.
Yeah.
Is where it comes from. And if the quality of the egg, pasture raised egg.
Organic.
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
okay. You're
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, you are. But what about you with Sage? Has there been anything like the journey?
Yeah, I think with Sage, it really spearheaded, which I feel like both of us in a way, but it really spearheaded just kind of my deep dive into ancestral eating, truly, and then just kind of metabolic approach overall. It was just super cool to learn with him and to know that, okay, every single thing that I was giving him, I knew where it came from. I knew the source. And, you know, some things in the big early days, I was giving him things that I never would have eaten, like sardines and, you know, egg yolk. I don't just eat egg yolk, but he did. And those things just kind of like starting out his palate that way. And it was super cool just to see, because I did have a little bit of that journey starting earlier with him.
Right.
Just because my doctor was telling me to put him on formula to kind of get his weight up. And then I just chose a different route.
Yeah.
And that route was talking to an IBCLC and getting his weight up that
highly
way.
recommend always,
yes.
Always.
And just, upping my, his breast milk intake. But then I started solid foods a little bit earlier than I had wanted to originally. So,
but he's so strong.
He was ready.
He started crying at 5 months.
Yeah.
So,
he was,
And that's when you introduce solids.
Yeah. It was about even like 5.5. I mean, it was like right there. But I had kind of thought, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to like 7 months with him. Who knows? Anyways, he was ready. It was meant to be. I'm so happy the way it turned out. But I learned so much through that process of just like, okay, this is how we can prepare foods. And this is how I can, reduce lactose and things. And I can, help him ultimately. So I think it was just more looking at food as like a gift and a journey and to nourish him and to not just like get by and do the easiest thing. And so I think sometimes my husband, I'm sure he's really impressed with me, but I think sometimes he's like, can we just give him a McDonald's cheeseburger? I'm sure, Jake, that's what you want every once in a while. But it's just been super cool to see that and just to see how strong he is and how many foods he does like. He is a wild boy.
He eats incredible.
He eats
everything.
He eats everything. And he loves seaweed and fish and sardines still and egg yolk and salmon. He loves all the salmon and steak. Anyways, so I think, the journey with him has been amazing, but it's really helped with like taking hold of like, okay, we're doing this. We're doing this as a family. It's not just me doing it by myself.
Right.
Like I'm raising him up in it. And then it's just been so sweet to see like how my husband has taken his own interest in it and it has become a more full family approach, I think, which is so neat to not do it alone.
Yeah, it's really important.
But I agree. The whole eating off my plate thing is so sweet. Except when I've bought a Trader Joe's cookie, the little buttery ones. And that's where we're talking about that 20/80 life, y'all. Or 80/20, whatever way it's supposed to be. But so we're learning, there's still going to be moments. But.
And I think like when we were kind of going through, which we still are, River's young, so she's still very in the early ages of her, or the early stages of her feeding journey. But I think for me, it was hard finding a resource where I could be like, so like,
oh, I'm so sorry.
I'll be loud.
Uh-oh.
So like, what can I feed her? Or like, what would be best? Just having something in like one place that was something I didn't find, or I
Right.
couldn't get a hold of like, why should I do this versus this, or why should I choose this path versus this? And so I think that laid the foundation even more so, like we knew our why, which is really helpful when you're continuing a path, especially for our children. And we hope to be that space for you guys of like where we have people on where you feel like, okay, like we're going to, dedicate a whole episode to baby led weaning and why we would recommend certain foods and why we wouldn't, and like those kind of things. But what we say, like for anything, if you know your why, you're going to be able to stand strong and you're going to be able to keep pursuing of like, this is what we're doing. And your why can evolve, but we're going to keep moving forward in that way. Was there any more to the journey? I think you kind of like,
yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
just a slow, if you are ready, like we never want to be like, this is how we did it, so you have to do this way. Like if you are ready to go all in and change everything and be like, I'm done. Like, you know what? I have been noticing that I get headaches every time I eat Chick-fil-A, and every time that I light a candle, and every time that I put this, body spray on or whatever it is, or I've been noticing like my body doesn't react, or I have skin or like, and I'm like done with it of like, seek, a really trusted, amazing provider, a functional medicine, like whatever it is, and move forward with that, or just, change it up. Like, or if you're more of the slow approach of, okay, I'm going to start eliminating, or I'm going to start swapping when something runs out, I'm going to start swapping, or I'm going to choose to, reach for an organic mango versus a non-organic, and it's in a 40 cents different, or whatever it is. Like, start the journey wherever you need to start. And if you're already on it, you're amazing, and keep going. But we never want to be like, this is how we've done it, so this is how you should do it. That's never what we're saying. We're showing one way, and you do it however works for you.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's just, we so happen to do it similar. Right. We both live in Los Angeles. We have a lot of resources that way, but we also don't have a lot of resources with trying to get clean sources of meats and milk and eggs. And that's really hard for us. So
we don't have a lot of farms nearby.
We don't have a lot of local farmers that we can have a relationship with that we would love to have. So we are limited to Sprouts a lot of times and Whole Foods. And that is our local farmer half the time. But I think, it's exactly that. It's it's owning it for you. Yeah. Right. And that's ultimately what it has to be, is just owning it for you and you making these changes. However, it's a personality thing. There's so many people who just go cold turkey and they blaze on through. Yeah. But I know like my own learning styles to not do it that way. Like I need more to like chip away and then it stays, it lasts, it sticks for me. So I think it's just,
and I feel like there's like some things that's like, I started reading about how much plastic we ingest in humans. It's like a credit card worth within a week. And so it's insane.
Oh my gosh. I wish you didn't tell me that.
So I went and threw out all of our plastic Tupperware and I bought all glass. And so it's like little things like that where I'm like, bye, not doing that again. And then other things where it's just a slower process. So
exactly. Sometimes you can just make a nice big purchase or go to Costco. Exactly. Or ask for it for Christmas. I mean, this year for Christmas, that was something I made a big priority. And, everything was like, hopefully it was trying to be all locally made and made in America at least and things like that. But just trying to get good cookware. Like that was a big thing I just asked for Christmas. I'm 10. I asked for Christmas though. And that was like just something I wanted. So it's just, you can always do it that way. Yeah. Right? It's just like, that could be your birthday present. New pots. Oh, that covered in Teflon and lead. And okay. Not going down that road if you don't want to hear about it.
No, we're not. Do your own research. The more you know, the more you know.
Exactly. And again, sometimes it's the less you know. Yeah. Sometimes you need to know less, and that's okay too. Yeah. Sometimes we're like, I need to just take a break. Like, I need to take a break, and that's okay.
Yes.
Exactly. Take a break from all the knowledge that you can just...
80-20. 80-20 lifestyle.
80-20.
There we go. That's it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's pretty much all we have for today. I mean,
just a little conversation kind of about what got us here, where we're going.
And with our bebes.
With our bebes. All the bebes in our home. But thank you for listening to today's episode. We are truly so glad you're here. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. But we hope that this was encouraging or I don't know, maybe you giggled a little bit, that's giggly, but we hope you got to know us a little bit more and truly our heart behind what we're doing and why we're doing this.
So much for joining us today.
Yes. We'll see you next week for another episode of Hey Mama.
Yeah. So bye, Mama.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Mama. We're so thankful you decided to join us today, and we hope you go forward in your day feeling encouraged and seen.
Here are a few ways you can connect with our community and support the show. The first way is to share the show with a friend via text or Instagram. You can follow and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And finally, follow us on Instagram at 4MamaBirth.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode.